Ladies and gentlemen, the conference will begin shortly. Please take your seats and switch your cell phones to silence.
Hey everyone. You're back. How was your day? Good, yeah. All right. I wanted to first thank you all again for joining us here, and I wanted to thank Microsoft again for being such a great supporter of this event. I would like to also just shortly introduce Caroline Lesser, Director of Engineering from Microsoft, to come up and say a few words about some of the work they're doing.
Thank you, Joel. And bienvenido. We're very proud to be here and to be a sponsor here at the Open edX conference. I think there was a few of us that were here back that were at Harvard in 2014 for the initial conference that led to the first partnership that Microsoft had with edX in March of 2015, where we published our first 7 courses. And to announce Keynote today, we're now at over 100 courses published on edX.org. And we're also now running our own instance of Open edX that supports providing content to customers, partners, and employees at the company. And I think there's a great marriage here between the edX, Open edX, and Microsoft community, bounded by our missions, with edX providing inclusive access and education available to anyone, everywhere, and with Microsoft's mission to empower every person and organization on the planet to achieve more. I lead the Learning and Readiness organization here at Microsoft, and what we're about is providing those skills that enable learners everywhere to get a job, to advance in their career, to gain a greater level of proficiency in a skill, or even to pursue their own passion, something that enables them to hopefully achieve their own economic opportunity and what can sort of better them. There's a great example of the partnerships that we need to be successful in the world today to address the skills gap and to enable this opportunity. I'd like to highlight a bit about the work that we're doing with Eastern Washington University in Cheney, Washington, a small regional school that actually serves an underprivileged and typically set of students who probably don't ever go to higher education. And it's through our work with the Microsoft Professional Program and our work with Open edX on Azure that we're actually able to provide an acceleration for them to on-ramp a new degree program proposed as a Bachelor of Science in Data Analytics, as well as to enable them to have an online presence for an extension school. With this, we think that we can continue to achieve global scale with local relevance by enabling those within that community to leverage what we have, but bring their own local point of view to it, and to meet the needs of that population there and sort of the skill requirements that were within that region. So thank you again for having us. We're so grateful to be here, and best wishes.
Awesome, thank you so much, Caroline. So I'd next like to invite up our keynote speaker, Vincent Zimmer from Kiron Open Higher Education.
Yes, welcome from my side. Thanks for having me. I have a bit of a challenge because by preparing for this talk, I realized that half of you have heard probably about Kiron already, and are more interested in what has happened the last year since I was at eMOOCs in Graz, and the other half maybe hasn't heard so much about us. So I tried to balance a bit both sides in my talk, and I ask for your forgiveness if you hear information maybe repetitively. I always like to start with a small exercise to get people a bit in the mood after a long conference day, and I hope you will join me. It requires that you close your laptop for just 10 seconds and put away your phone, and sit up a bit straight, so not leaning back, a bit coming to the front, and making eye contact with me, also the last row. Johannes, where are you? Yes, I see you. And you look towards me, and you close your eyes. You close your eyes, and you imagine the most important object that you would take with you if you would have to leave your home forever. Please create an image in your head, hold the image, and now open your eyes. And raise your hand if you have thought of your high school diploma. Okay. Some of you have been at the eMOOCs 2016, you are lying. I asked this question since 2 years, and surprisingly few people think of that. When my grandfather was in this situation in 1944, he took a warm jacket. And it turns out that it's not so easy to go to a German university if you have just a warm jacket and no certification of your education. And the sad truth is that since 60 years, this overall problem hasn't changed much. So the refugee numbers have risen up to 65 million, and still less than 1% of this population have actually access to higher education. And for me, that's a bit the topic of my life. I grew up with my grandparents, and was raised in this belief, if you have nothing else, if you lose everything, what is in your head is the only thing that helps you out of there. And the strong belief in education made me so angry when I discovered, we have made so much progress. The world had developed, the BPEs are raising global development everywhere, but we are not able to solve this problem and serve this community properly. And the triggering point for me was, like for many people, the Syrian crisis. When I was doing part of a research day for my PhD in Istanbul, and I met people like Saida here. She's 19 years old. She had 1 week in college before she had to leave. And she told me that she actually wanted to become an engineer, but she lost her high school diploma. She can't afford tuition fees. She's not speaking the language probably, and she doesn't know where she's going to stay. So she moved from Syria to a camp, then to Istanbul, worked there for 2 years, then moved to Greece, then moved to Germany, Munich, then moved to Berlin, then moved to actually Stuttgart, and then back to Berlin. So a journey of over almost 4 years before she actually had the chance to actually even think about education. And the UNHCR is recognizing these problems over and over again since 30 years. And our feeling was the problem doesn't go away because many people working in this field, but they're addressing single problems. They're addressing the language problem. They're addressing tuition fee problems, so they're giving scholarships, but no one is taking really care of the whole holistic. So that was the idea for Kiron to see, if we want to tackle the problem truly, we have to think globally, and we have to take all problems in the same time into account. And that's how we came up with the idea of using digital education to give people access. Because you have very low fixed cost, you have no capacity problems. If you don't have this tool, you don't have to be so strict on formal barriers of asking for certificates. And you can link it to actually existing higher education institutions. So the idea was not to create a refugee university, the idea was to bridge that time gap for people to get them into local universities. The way we do that is by having a digital platform that is basically using the MOOCs you are all here providing at edX, helping the people studying these courses, and then getting them recognized once they transfer into university. That sounds super easy. It is not. Probably you can imagine how much resistance we got everywhere with, first of all, this idea, and then if the people said, okay, this is actually a good idea, let's go to the details, many problems occur. I will spare you the details, but it has been a very long journey since the last 2 years. And we are really proud that we made progress and found so many partners who were willing to support us on this journey. What's important to notice is, again, it's not just about access to education, it's about helping people to succeed. So we're caring about psychological support, we're providing mentors and buddies, we're helping with housing, we're providing study centers, we're helping with access to Wi-Fi, access to hardware, and 10 other things that people need to actually be able to use what edX and his partners are offering. This is a small list of the things we do. One particular importance I would like to state at the direct academics program, which is a way of professors from our partner universities actually offering tutoring courses on top of the MOOCs. And we realized that this direct interaction with professors, this direct interaction with teaching staff, actually motivates our students much more than even if the course is of very high quality. If it's completely self-paced, that's nice, but direct interaction with professors is what motivates students, and it's also what motivates the professors to have the students like face-to-face, and then it creates advocates inside the universities who help us move forward with the partnerships. Maybe summing up where we have been since 2015, we're working roughly now with 41 partner universities in 8 countries. We're focusing on Germany, France, Turkey, Jordan, Lebanon. We're roughly around 100 employees and around 400 volunteers. Who are we? I mean, you can see I'm quite young. So obviously I haven't done that alone. I was the founder, but luckily enough, many people joined me on this journey. Many from all different kinds of fields, like from higher education, from companies, from NGO sector. And we're very lucky that we have this shared expertise in our leading team, but also in our advisory board, that helps us gain the trust from our partners, but then also deliver on the promises we made a while ago. Special things, like always, I have to say, our work wouldn't be possible if we wouldn't be not an NGO, non-profit, run by volunteers. So we have a lot of students who are helping out with dealing with the students on an everyday basis as buddies or mentors. But we have also experts from certain companies, for example, from Google, who have data bank experts, who have maybe just a week or 2, but in this week they can help us solve a problem we would otherwise using 2 or 3 months to be solved. And we couldn't afford hiring an expert in this field. So we're very thankful for all this support, and this is a picture from our Kiron Global Weekend, so similar to this partner conference. We're gathering every 6 months because we realized you can collaborate digitally very, very well, but sometimes you have to see the persons face to face. I was asked a bit to speak about how do we become sustainable, what is the real impact that we hope to provide. And there I have to bore you a bit with our theory of change. And maybe forget about the details, but on 2 sides you have maybe to focus. The one is on the individual level. So we say, first of all, we're serving our students. And the student is always a person. It's not a number. He has his own history, his own pace, and you cannot generalize. So there is not a refugee population. There are people from Eritrea, there are people from Syria, there are people from the Ukraine, there are people from the Philippines, and all have different backgrounds, different educational journeys, and it's really hard to say this is one-size-fits-all solution to everyone. So you have to adapt, you have to individualize, and you have to stay flexible also in terms of what you think is right for these people. The second approach is that we thought we never alone cannot solve this problem. Doesn't matter how holistic our solution is, doesn't matter how scalable it is, I cannot serve 5 to 6 million people with this. So we have to broaden our impact by working on the institution level to having systematic change. That means for us, getting online learning more recognized in countries where it hasn't been allowed so far, for example, in Turkey or in Jordan. But it also means pushing forward the boundaries of online learning in countries where it has been recognized. For example, in Germany, getting online exams recognized equally to offline exams, getting MOOCs in general accepted as equivalent to offline courses. This is a bit why we're all doing this. So why at all higher education? I mean, normally if you see the humanitarian sector, you would argue this is something not so important compared to food and shelter. But it's the most underserved area of the humanitarian sector. And we can see from the lifetime value of giving someone a bachelor degree is around $300,000 to $400,000 for that person. And it's adding a lot of social benefits also for the hosting communities if you're educating these people fast and well enough so they can contribute to society instead of taking back. And we're focusing on higher education because we strongly believe if we want to rebuild the countries torn apart by war, or if you want to integrate large numbers of people coming, for example, to Germany, like 1 million from Syria at the moment, we have to create local communities and local leaders. And who could that be rather than not young people who are getting proper education? A bit like how we basically are financed, or how's our model working. We understand ourselves as a social startup. That means we are a non-profit, but we want to become self-sustainable. We have different streams for achieving that. The first is an HR talent pool, where we're talking to companies and say, look, we're educating people on a, for example, university level, but they're also speaking the language of their hosting countries. So maybe if you want to sell cars, let's say, in the Middle East, it would be very good to have a Syrian engineer educated in Germany. And Volkswagen said, yes, that's a very good idea. We're going to fund you 100 students so they can later on work with us. We don't connect direct contacts between the students and the companies because we want to have free educational choices. So the companies get access, but they don't get promised candidates. And lucky enough for us, many companies have joined us in this journey and making up 30–40% of our budget already. The second one is university revenue sharing. With our work, we're contributing to integrational costs for government, so by reducing these costs. So they don't have to pay for social welfare, people can get a job and are not relying on the government. So we thought it's just fair if the government pays some of the cost for this educational journey. And this is easily done because there are schemes available for universities to cover their costs in terms of students. We had to be very careful by designing this because we didn't want to take places away from local or national students, and we had to, of course, adapt to all the frameworks and rules available. So what we do is we're channeling students in the third and fourth semester and replacing the students who have dropped out from the first year. That way, you don't taking away places from anyone, and you're still giving our students a fair chance. The last model is the reverse generation contract, where we believe we're investing so much in these people, and we expect them to give back, not to us, but to the next generation of students. So we're asking them in the beginning, look, we're not going to give you tuition fees, you not have to pay, we didn't give you a contract, but we expect you to give back if you get your education, if you get a job. And 80 to 90% of our students agree to that and say, yes, I will do so. I will dedicate 5% of my income for a certain time, not to give to Kiron, but to fund the next generation of students. And I think that's also important that we emphasize this. There's these people, they want to get education, but they also want to give back. A bit here, look into our strategy. Probably not so interesting for you. Just a bit where we're standing right now. At the moment, we're focusing on study success. So that means we want our students to get into the model. We want to see that their needs are served, and they have a good study experience with us, and then be able to go on to our partner universities. Next year, we're expecting the first cohorts to go on larger scale to our partner universities. This year, we have the first pilots, the first single cases moving. In 2019, we expect that we have a proof of concept, we have gone to the whole educational cycle, and then be able to scaling this process up for more people and putting it into place in as many countries as possible. So far, we had around 5,000 students into the program and roughly around 2,400 students actively studying with us. What that means in terms of completion rates and dropouts, I will come to that in a minute. Maybe a few details on the number. If I look a bit angry, that's because I forgot my glasses and the monitor is a bit too small. So we have 36% female students, which is above the average of 20% in the overall population, which we're very proud of. We're offering different study tracks like business economics, computer science, social science, and engineering. These study tracks weren't chosen randomly. We actually asked our students, what are you actually interested in? 80% said medicine, and I said, choose again. And that's what they came up with. Interesting for us, especially social science, social work, which is rather important if you consider integrating 1 million people into a hosting company, or generally of integrating people. It's very good to have people working in this field who have gone through that experience. Obviously, the majority of our students comes from Syria, but if you then look at the others, 50%, it becomes very, very fragmented. So we have people from Africa, we have people from the Philippines, we have nowadays a lot of people from Bangladesh and Myanmar, where a lot of conflicts going on that we don't hear so much in the newspapers. But we see that and reflected in our application. What have been our learnings? I don't want to hold the workshop like we had the whole day already, but maybe show a few insights what we have experienced. And to sum it up a bit, I think where we see our role is that Kiron is not really an innovator. So we have been using stuff you all have been inventing 2 or 3 years ago. What we have done is what is described as deep innovations. So we looked at what is there and what was innovative, and how to make that, optimize that, how to make that better working in real life, how to put that into practice on larger scale. And one way to do that is for us by working very closely with our partners on research projects. So what we call evidence-based decision-making. So we're running a lot of research projects with the German government, with the Jordanian government, with the EU, and I will pick one example. So there was a lot of trust issues with our partner universities, how you can compare online exams to offline exams. Can you really trust that the online exams have any value of estimating what people have learned? So what we did is we made a pilot. We had 50 students taking online exams and have them tested afterwards, the same exam, but offline again, and vis-a-vis, first offline, then offline, and only offline, only online. And what we found was no difference. So significant difference. So some people failed, some people passed, some people succeeded in a course extraordinarily well. And what that showed was that you actually indeed can use online exams comparable to offline exams. It's a very small number, but this pilot created a lot of trust in the ministry and the federal states and with our partner universities, and especially with the professors involved. So there were like more than 21 professors involved in the pilot, and they of course went back to their universities and shared that experience. And that is really important to us, that we have slowly, step by step, a change of mind into the institutions to become more open to our solutions. Another learning, we had yesterday the discussion of mobile. 70% of our students are studying mobile with us, with their smartphone. And our website, as you can imagine, is very young, so not very optimized like Facebook or anything for mobile learning. And they're also using edX via their smartphone. And if you can imagine studying 10 or 20 MOOCs via your smartphone, I can't imagine that, but people are actually doing that. So this is one of the learnings we had. It's actually possible. First of all, it's possible, and people are doing it. It's not nice. It could be much, much better, and we have to work towards making that experience better. But the reality right now is it's working. Here, one course example from edX. This was the Introduction to Marketing by University of British Columbia. And we singled out a course to see how are our students performing in this course over time. And what you normally have in MOOCs, you have a lot of people starting at the beginning, and you have a dropout to a certain pool, and then it stays stable. In a normal course, at the offline course, you have people joining, everyone is there in the beginning, then people get a bit lazy, then they start doing it again, and before the exam you have a peak again. So it goes more like a pegger. And what was the interesting feedback from the professor was that he said he also saw no difference in the behavior of our students compared to his offline students. So of course there was a certain dropout, but for the people who really started off the courses, they actually sticked, and they showed a similar behavior, like sometimes being more active, then becoming inactive again, and then closely before the exam, everyone was there again. So this is of course very nice feedback to us, and very interesting in showing what is the driving factor to achieving this kind of behavior. This is another course data from a project we are doing with Coursera for Refugees. And here's a bit also with data on how our completion rates are working. In this project, we had the challenge of, in 4 weeks, recommending a certain type of courses to our students. And it's indicated that we had a rather low dropout rate, rather high dropout rate for our terms of 21%. Which is interesting to us because if you compare it to the Kiron prep courses, which is like the first year of Kiron, it's much higher. Where we learned if you just throw courses at people randomly, the dropout rate is higher rather than if you have a learning path built around that. Maybe a bit on these numbers. What's interesting here is these are not single course completion numbers. So this is not 32% in a single course. This is the dropout rate from one cohort that is starting and doing every month at least 4 to 5 MOOCs. So that's why also our initial completion rates that I talked about 1 year ago have been going down, but they have been going down because people are attending more and more courses. And of course, over time we're losing some people, but the majority comes back, and if they fail, they try again, which makes it a bit hard to provide, that you have to really go deep into the data to see what is there. But for us, interesting is that we could really show that people can use MOOCs to study over a long period of time. My last point, female empowerment. We did an impact potential analysis where we said, okay, we have very limited resources. We are a very young organization, so we really need to know what to invest in, what is important to us and what is not. We don't have 2 or 3 years to try something out and then realize it doesn't work. And what we realized in this analysis was that it is 4 times more impactful to bring a female student towards a degree rather than a male student. 2 reasons. The first reason is male students without education can always use their muscles to earn money. Female students not. Female students who have education tend to be moving out of their family and have their own life, rather if they're uneducated, they stick with their family and basically stay at home. And if they have education, they pass it on to their children. From this idea on, we changed a lot of our communication, we changed a lot of targeting our students, because we felt if it's 4 times more valuable to have a female student, we have to do much more effort to get female students into our program. And we tried actually also with partner corporates, with research project, what does work and what doesn't work. So we tried out 32 different methods and instruments. And the 2 things we found was, first of all, communication. So putting female students to the front, if you show students at all, and calling the parents. Calling the parents in their mother tongue is the most effective way of convincing them to let their children go to university or go to an educational program and support them on this journey. And also interesting for us is once you have female students in the courses, they're much more likely to complete the courses and stick to them. Which again is like if you have limited resources and you want to achieve something with that, it's a very interesting code. Okay, sounds all very nice. And now the question's a bit, so what next? Or it sounds very good, so the problem is solved, or what could go wrong from here? And there again, maybe a little exercise. Maybe, again, maybe you don't have to close your eyes, but maybe in your head think of one thing what you think, okay, what could be a problem? It sounds, yeah, Kiron is going on this, so we can a bit relax, problem solved. Maybe think of one thing what you think, what could be a problem? And maybe the gentleman in the front, would you like to share with us? What do you think of? Oh, you can also both share.
Economic adversity usually go wrong.
The economic
Adversity.
adversity. Okay. I think it's fine. Thanks. This guy. This guy. I mean, I don't have to say that I was on a personal level very disappointed from seeing this man coming to power. What is more a problem is what he's standing for. And it's not only him, it's also Mr. Erdogan in Turkey, it's also the Brexit happening, it's also Marine Le Pen in France. So what we have seen over the last of the year is a backslash on the refugee topic, the end of the welcome culture in Germany, and a general feeling of fear and these people stealing our jobs, taking our resources whatsoever, and they're more like a threat we have to fight and we have to keep out of Europe rather than helping and making efforts to help them. And for us as a young organization, this is very threatening. If you have built things up, but there's no buffer, there's no surviving a few months with holding still or laying down. And there's no place to hide as well, because we have been very public, very in the media. And that was the moment when I was very thankful to being part of this community. Because shortly after, I think it was 1 week ago, I received an email from, I think it was Anand and Johannes actually, making clear where edX and where MIT and where all the universities standing on this fight. And I was very touched by it, that we see we are a very small partner. And I know we don't have much relevance if you consider millions of users, and then Kiron is there with this 2,000 people. And I actually gathered all our employees and all people, and we read the email out loud and to encourage us that this fight is not lost. And that was the feeling from the beginning on we had in this community, that we are welcome, and that despite our small size, we're receiving a lot of support from universities and from all people who work in this field. And I think this is because we share this core idea that education is a very powerful tool of changing people's life and of making the world a better place. And maybe that's why I want to quickly describe what edX has done. Maybe many of you have been not aware of all the support that has been going on. So when we first met with Johannes, we didn't have an office, actually. I didn't have a chair to offer him. And he came and said, you know what? I don't know where this is going, but I will give you right away like 5,000 certificates, and edX will pay for them, so you can offer your students at least a chance. And we see where does it take you. And from there on, we developed a very fruitful dialogue where edX introduced us to universities who open up to becoming partners, for opening up, giving their courses so we can use them for our students, and also exchanging data, exchanging learnings. So I attended last year a lot of workshops here. And all the learnings you had over the last years, we listened very closely, and we took all the learnings and implemented them directly to serve our students better. Because again, we don't have the resources to have all these tryouts, all this failure, all this, thoughtful research that is behind. So for us, it was extremely important to benefiting from all these learnings. And one outcome of this was that Kiron made a decision to become Kiron edX partner himself with KironX. Maybe briefly, what is the idea behind? We experience that in the curricula, we have a lot of gaps in terms of some courses are missing and other courses, will never be produced, like Mathematics 3, for example, or Introduction to Artificial Robotic. Sounds very fancy, but Introduction to Theoretical Mathematics, not so fancy at all. So with Kiron X, we have a chance to getting our other partners who are not at edX involved and helping them producing courses that are filling the gaps in our curriculum and helping our students to have a complete learning path into university. And now maybe we should know where we're standing right now. I mean, we have come a long way. I think if you consider coming from an idea to building an organization, to having a concept, and now see that it's actually becoming reality is a very great thing. But we're not there yet. And maybe that's my call to action to all of you, to consider if your institution would like to open up and say we would consider becoming a partner university ourselves. Or if you're a professor or have colleagues, say I would consider giving a tutoring, for example, to refugee students on top of the MOOCs I'm providing. Sharing knowledge and research projects is, of course, a very obvious part. And I think the general idea is like help us learn, like share your knowledge with us, share your experience with us. And the most of the time, actually, the partners have the better ideas on how to help us rather than me pulling you in. I think Johannes has been very helpful in this whole journey. So I don't want to go around edX here. But if you see a chance of contributing to this mission, please do so. And maybe on a lighter note, I want to share one student story with you of Ahmed, who's 22 years old, from Syria. He has studied in 6 months 23 MOOCs with us, and he actually recently transferred to a partner university in Germany. And majority of these courses, by the way, I think 17 of them have been edX courses. And we're very lucky that he got not only accepted into university, also got a scholarship, but he got these MOOCs completely accepted for transfer credits. So he got 30 ECTS accepted. And this is the thing, is a huge success for us, of course, but also for you, because it shows that the courses you're providing have such high quality that even without you explaining another university what the course is about, by simply looking at them, they agree on, okay, this is the same quality standard we are holding in Germany, and we're going to accept it and award credits for that. And I think that's a great symbol of the quality of the people in this room and of the work you're doing in your everyday and of the improvements we have seen in MOOCs in general. And maybe the quote, we're not going to read it out loud, but my hope is that we can come together as a network, as a community, and help that these problems I described from my grandfather's time can stay where they belong in the past. Thank you very much. And normally I tell people don't speak longer than 7 minutes, no one is listening anyway, and now I thought half an hour later. I'm sorry, I was a bit carried away. I think we have a couple of minutes for questions if you like, but of course I will be here also later on or tomorrow, so feel free to approach me and also go in bilateral talks. But maybe we can make a small round. I see a gentleman, and I'm a bit blended by the light, so please forgive me if I don't see your hands.
Hi, my name is Ronald Burnett. I'm from KTH in Stockholm. Thank you so much for a very inspiring presentation.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you about scalability. If I understood it right, you have about 2,400 active students, is that right?
Yes.
And you have 500 staff, including the 400 volunteers. So how do you see scaling this operation further?
A lot of our work is one-time work. So, building a platform, making all the APIs. I need 10 developers to do that. But once the API is there, once the platform is there, we're not building a learning platform that has to develop over time. Luckily enough, we're profiting from Open edX or any platform that is working with us and that is proceeding. So we have to set it up once, and then it's fine. The same with the academic partnerships. So I have, at the moment, 15 people working on curriculum design, academic partnerships, quality assurance, and all these type of things. But once the contracts are done, the partnership is set up, you don't need this work anymore. I think we'll not let all people off, they will find different ways. But what I want to describe is there's a lot of work to be done in the beginning to set everything up, and then when it's up and running, it becomes easier. At the same time, we are looking at ways to automatize many of our services, and we designed, for example, the Buddy and the Mentor program to be scalable and have own self-sustaining models. For example, with the Buddy program, we are partnering with the Red Cross, who are recruiting at the moment 1,000 buddies for this program. And if this plays out well, they're going to scale it to every country we are in. There are 180 countries. So we have one partner who's then completely taking over this part. So my answer is with technology and partnerships.
Well, if I had flowers, I would throw them on the stage. This is really a great project, and I congratulate you on this. On a more technical note, how did you convince German universities to recognize ECTS, to recognize MOOCs as ECTS generating entities? Was it because you had this refugee card you could play? Oh, we have to do something exceptional for these people who need some special exemption? Or are these now for everybody recognized?
Good question. I think the refugee card gets us the meeting. And in the meeting, especially the Justitia, I don't know what is the equivalent, the legal advisor of the university, they're not fooling around. They have their laws and they have their rules and they're not changing them. So for each of these partner universities, actually a talk from 27 people, down from the presidium to the faculty, to the department, to the single professor, and then back up for the whole process, and for each study track, the whole process over again. And on top of that, talks with the ministry, talks with the accreditation agencies. So no, we're not changing the rules, and the reason why it's working is we are persistent. They say, no, it's not working for that reason, then we give them an answer and come up with a solution. And I always make this joke that there are these 100 top questions that are always coming up, always the same questions. And we have to always get a bit careful not to get tired of repeating them. But simply by now, we have the answers to these top 100 questions. And that's what also helps us is, of course, this dynamic. If it have a few universities already been accepting this process, it becomes easier for other universities to follow. And because they can say, oh, it can't be that bad because 5 other universities are already doing it. So the first 5 have been extremely hard, and now we actually have almost a stop on partners because you can't handle so much work in the same time.
But is it also open for non?
Yes. That's the beauty of a legal. I mean, we're using the Erasmus framework, so we're basically setting up a learning agreement. That's basically saying it's also not scientific proof. It's basically saying what you normally have. You do a course, you go to university, and then they check. And what we do is we have to check before you take the course to give you some security that the course is being accepted later on. This is no 100% guarantee, but if you have the professor always look at the course and say, I think this is equivalent to my course, why should he change his opinion in 6 months? Normally professors don't tend to do that. Maybe 1 or 2 more questions, but I'm also fine with Okay. If there are no... Yes. Then I think we can close it. Thank you very much for your patience and your attention. I simply sit down. Yes. Thank you.
All right, well, that just about does it for today. I'd like to invite you all to join us in the courtyard of, there's a building across the park over here. There will be people to guide you for a reception. There will be some refreshments, some light snacks, and great people. So please join us there. There will be shade as well, as I understand it's a little warm out. So anyway, please find your way over there, and I will talk to you there. Thank you.